and lead at AK Poku Law. So the conversation about the U.S. visas, we're talking about the B1, B2 travel visas, the F1 for student visas, receiving single entry visas valid for just 3 months has been a concern. A lot of Ghanaians are worried about that. Actually, they're torn between what the facts are and what the speculations are. So we're going to have to get a bit of clarity there. According to a fresh visa reciprocity update from the U.S. Department, Ghanaian applicants for non-immigrant visas are really in the mix. They are in the mix here. Exceptions remain for diplomats, A-class, fiancé, and also spouse, K-class, and dependent visas, which retain a multi-entry status and longer durations. I have on the phone this afternoon for a special feature is Ekwia O Abuaji, AK Poku. How you doing? I hope you're well.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm doing well. Good afternoon to all your listeners as well. I'm very happy to be here. Yes, you can call me AK Poku.
Nice. And we understand that you are the one, basically the repository of the entire detail and the knowledge around this visa complications. And we're happy to have you on the phone.
I see. Okay, well, yes, thank you.
Anyway, before we get right into that, how have you been able to explain this officially and unofficially?
Okay, thank you for the question. So this all came about on July 8th.
Okay.
When the U.S. Embassy in Nigeria actually issued an update or an advisory stating that there was a new visa restriction that had affected several countries, including Nigeria. And so we posted about this, and then one of our followers actually notified us that Ghana had also been affected. So I went on to the Ghana Department of State's website or U.S. Embassy website for Ghana. I didn't see any official notice, but then I went into the reciprocity chat for Ghana.
Okay.
So the U.S. publishes a visa reciprocity schedule or chat, and each country has all its available visas, and then there's also detail about how long the visas are supposed to last for and how many entries each visa should have. And so when I went on the website, I realized that Ghana had also been downgraded, and this showed that they had also been impacted by the visa restriction, although there was no official announcement by the U.S. Embassy in Ghana. We've also confirmed that the U.S. Embassy in Ethiopia and the U.S. Embassy in Cameroon have also issued official announcements. So these are the 4 countries that we're aware of have been downgraded or have faced these visa restrictions.
Okay. I'd like for us to go in a certain order, just so I can bring some understanding here. What does this new policy stipulate, though? I mean, you've given us a background as to the countries that have been affected. I'm looking at especially regarding B1, B2, and F1 visas. How is this panning out? What's the new policy stipulated for Ghanaians?
Okay. So previously, for categories like B visas, right, for visitors or tourists who are coming into the United States, the U.S. had a maximum validity period, which was up to 5 years multiple entry. Of course, it was at the discretion of the consular officer once you appeared before him at the U.S. Embassy in Ghana to issue you, for example, a 1-year multiple entry or a 2-year multiple entry. But typically, they would issue to Ghanaians 5-year multiple entry visas.
Right.
And what that meant was that within a period of 5 years, a traveler coming in, for example, on a B visa could come into the U.S. several times in and out. And, they could come in and out on the same visa several times until the visa expired.
Right.
It didn't mean that they could necessarily stay for 5 years. The period of stay once they enter the U.S. was determined by their I-94 period of authorized stay. The visa is only an entry or admission ticket to come to the US and then ask a CBP officer to allow you to enter the US. And then the CBP officer will tell you how long you could remain based on your I-94. I'm sorry. Now, moving forward, the new visa downgrade or visa restriction says that there is single entry 3-month validity period for many U.S. immigrant and non-diplomatic visas. This means that if you are issued with a 3-month visa, you can come into the US single entry just once. As soon as you enter the US once, that visa expires.
Wow.
And one thing I would have to explain is that people are saying, oh, so that means you can come into the US and stay for just 3 months. For example, if you're studying.
Right.
That's not what this means.
Okay.
Again, the visa is just an entry ticket. You come into the US and say, can I get entry or be admitted into the country? Your I-94 determines. And so if you're in a B visa, you would typically be given, for example, a 6-month stay despite having a 3-month visa validity.
Okay.
For students, they're typically given something called DS, duration of status. So long as their CVIS record remains active, they are pursuing a full course of study, that visa, which is valid for 3 months, should not impact their studies. What that means again is that if you're a student, for example, and you enter the US on a 3-month visa, once you leave a single entry visa, you go back to your country to, let's say you're going back for Christmas.
Yeah.
If you're coming back into the US, you will need a new visa to seek admission again.
Okay.
Despite the fact that you may still have studies to pursue, you need a visa to always come into the US.
That must be a big one to carry on, especially having to reapply every now and then. Now, these limitations you're talking about, would you be able to explain to us what the driving factors might be behind the limitations?
Absolutely. So this is all factored into law. According to the Immigration and Nationality Act, Section 221C, it says that a non-immigrant visa shall be valid for such periods as shall be by regulations prescribed. In prescribing the period of validity of a non-immigrant visa, in the case of nationals of any foreign country who are eligible for such visas, the Secretary of State shall insofar as practicable, accord such nationals the same treatment upon a reciprocal basis as such foreign country accords to nationals of the United States who are within a similar class. Okay. So simply put, it's just kind of like, this is the principle of reciprocity. It's kind of like, you do me, I do you. So when the US sets visa conditions for citizens of another country, it looks at how that country treats its US citizens applying for similar visas.
Right.
But the catch here is that the Ghana embassy in DC actually gives US citizens 2 visa options for tourists. We have the 90-day single entry, which costs $60 at the Ghana embassy in DC again. And there's a 6-month to 5-year multiple entry visa for about $100. And so if the US wanted to mirror that reciprocity, then it should have also given an option for a multiple entry visa, not just restricting it to a 3-month single entry visa.
Right.
And so that brings me to the conclusion that this is not just about reciprocity, but it's actually a visa sanction that has been slapped on the country.
And that's for a lot more people might be thinking that it might be a way to basically like it's a veil that's covering the fact, like you just put it. Would you say that there are some real world impacts that you might foresee in light of the situation, especially concerning tourists, students, and business travelers? Is there any foreseeable impact here?
I mean, the impact is very clear. The US will, I don't know if they're going to reduce the visa fees to be commensurate with the validity of visas. But it will require more people to go into the embassies to keep applying. Obviously, there's more enhanced vetting, stricter screening.
Yeah.
And so that could cause a lot of backlog at the US embassies. And then, they could make a lot of money also from this as well.
But do you see how Ghana offering the U.S. citizens are affecting applicants, especially in light of this strict reciprocity? Are we matching it, or we're not matching it?
I mean, it looks like we're matching it because the Ghana embassy gives US citizens 2 options, a single entry and a multiple entry. And so we are matching it. So it's up to the Ghana government on a diplomatic level to continue to negotiate. But let me just add that. So these are maximum, maximum validity periods, right? Maximum extent. And so obviously there's that downgrade because for countries like Colombia, they are given up to 10 years in B2 visas, which is really good. 10-year multiple entry. So it depends on your country and how they are able to negotiate with the US. And the reason why Colombia, for example, has a 10-year multiple entry being issued by the US government to Colombian citizens is that in exchange, Colombia offers a visa-free travel to US citizens up to 90 days, for tourism. And so the government has to negotiate with the US, the Ghana government has to probably negotiate with the US government to see how best they can increase the validity periods of these visas.
All right, so we're actually getting closer to getting some understanding and making a headway in our conversation here. But I want to find out from you, from a legal standpoint, from where you sit, if you have to give advice to legal advice to anyone who might be affected here, especially for those who travel frequently. Is there anything you might want to advise concerning alternative visa routes, or maybe a plan to offset such limitations?
Okay. Well, before I get to your question, let me add this. I've gotten multiple inquiries about, why these visa restrictions, are they connected to political utterances?
Yeah.
I just want to clarify that if you guys remember in June 2025, I believe it was June 4th, 2025, there was a new Trump travel ban that was issued. 19 countries faced restrictions from entering the US.
Yes.
Some were partial. 12 countries were totally banned from entering the US, and 9 countries were partially banned. Now, if you look at the proclamation that gave power to the president to issue this ban,
right,
the proclamation actually stated that for the countries that had been partially banned, the consular officers should restrict to the maximum extent possible allowed by law when they were issuing non-immigrant visas. Again, in June 2025, Washington Post came out with an article saying that there were 36 additional countries that were being considered to be potentially added to the already existing visa ban. And 25 of those countries were from Africa. We had Ghana, Nigeria, and all these other countries.
Right.
And so my thought when I saw these restrictions are that it is probably as a result of those warnings that had been issued.
Right.
And this is fortified by the US Embassy in Nigeria's update that they issued on the matter. The US Embassy in Nigeria, their formal advisory on the matter said that there was failure to meet some key global standards, including the government of Nigeria failing to issue secure travel documents to its nationals, a lack of visa overstay management, and a lack of information sharing, especially when it came to criminal data. And so in a similar vein, it looks like those were the criteria upon which the US government based its decision to slap us with these visa sanctions.
All right, so 2 more questions before you go. One actually stemming from an update concerning social media and this particular directive. So it says there might be more drilling of your social media account and making it open in case you want to be one of these applicants. How do you think that this might affect the way Ghanaians apply now? Absolutely, even people from Africa especially.
Okay, right. So in June 2025, there was a Department of State cable that was issued by Marco Rubio. And first of all, it told all US embassies around the world to put a hold on booking visa appointments for FMNJ students. For people who are coming in, international students to pursue a full course of study. M visas are for people who are coming into the US to pursue a vocational course of study. And J visas are for people who are coming in to pursue, the cultural exchange visa program. So they put a hold on appointments, and people were not able to book appointments or go for visas from outside the United States within those categories. And then they issued another cable saying that, now, moving forward, they could resume visa appointments for these students, but the new requirement was that All these people, all students who were coming into the US embassies for visas to study, they had to make their social media pages public.
Okay.
Previously, you just, between 2019 to 2025, visa applicants, including students, just had to list their social media handles.
And that's
And
it.
if it was locked up, that was fine. The consular officer did not have to, do an extra or jump an extra hurdle to verify. But
Okay.
now the requirement is that you want a visa, you got to put your social media on public as a student. And then the officers would first of all determine your eligibility. And then as a second step, if you are determined to be eligible for a student visa, they would then need to scrutinize your social media to determine if you were somebody who should be issued a visa or not. And so
Okay.
you're obviously this puts a burden on students. If you're coming in, be careful of what you put on social media, what you say, what you write, who you support, because in the Department of State cable, it was even stated that even your affiliations, right?
Okay.
So pages you've liked, if you're liking pages of people who are probably known, for example, to be terrorists or to not support US policies,
Okay.
or you are commenting or liking, they're even going as far as if you've liked a post, you haven't said anything, but you've just liked a post that seems inimical to US interests, then you could be in trouble.
Okay. All right. So you mean the drill also includes hate speech and unsavory comments about politics and governments, you say?
Yes, it has to do with anybody that shows any malicious attitude or hatred towards the principles, the culture, the governance, or anything concerning the United States. It also concerns, anti-Semitism, things about just anything that could be considered as a potential security threat to the United States.
All right. That's a bit of a burden for a lot more people because I don't know how further back the drilling will go, because when you think about it, Facebook history especially might be coughing things from the past for you to review. But how far back do you think this drill might happen? Is it 10 years back? Is it 5 years back? Or is it forever back?
That's an interesting question, and it's not stated how far back they're going to go. But I will say that yesterday, this week, I was actually listening to the House of Judiciary Committee, that is the body that will deliberate and argue as to why Congress should pass certain laws, in regards to the visa integrity fee, the new $250 visa bond fee that non-immigrant visa holders would have to pay in order to be issued fully with a U.S. non-immigrant visa. And one of the things that the members of Congress, or one of the witnesses, said was that there was a gentleman who's called Solomon. He was part of the, he actually was involved in a Boulder terrorist attack in Colorado Boulder. People were protesting and he threw a fire in their midst. And he hurt some people, about 12 to 18 people, injured them.
Yeah.
And they realized that this Solomon, who's an Egyptian, he came into the US on a B2 visa. And as soon as he came in, a month later, he applied for asylum. And then he did this bombing. Apparently on his Facebook, there were some issues that should have been flagged. Previously, before he was issued with a B2 visa, they had denied him a visa at the US embassy. And then subsequently he was approved. And so they were saying that if the consular officers had actually screened his social media, they would have seen that he had some type of anti-Semitism traits or whatever that could have done away with this issue.
Right.
And so by a logical inference, it's not about, they're going to go back to 2 years. Well, if you've said something 10 years ago, that could make you a threat to US security.
Right.
And I don't see any reason why they are not going to refuse you a visa. Okay. So there's no stipulated time period within which they're going to review. But I would assume that whatever they are able to flag, no matter how far back it is. Unless, of course, there's some, retraction or you have
a delete wouldn't work, would it? Deleting wouldn't work, would it?
I don't know because I don't know what kind of tools the US government has
Right.
access to in their
Right.
database or in their toolbox.
Hmm.
They have access to all these advanced software engineers. And so
Okay.
I'm not sure whether deleting could make things worse, where they could see that these things have been deleted. And I mean, the owner of Facebook is in the US. They could, there are things they could do to fish all these things out.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know if deleting would help or make things worse.
Okay.
So
All right.
I would leave that to the discretion of the applicants themselves.
Yes, and to the discretion of you trying to apply it tomorrow if you're listening in. Now, before we go, two more things. One is for you to tell me if this situation is just temporary or it's a way of setting the precedence going forward, and then you can wrap it up with your final piece of advice to Ghanaians who might be preparing to apply for any U.S. Visa today.
If which one is temporary? Okay, so for example, the 3 month single entry validity
Yes.
period
Hmm.
thing, that principle or the reciprocity process, it's always an ongoing process. And so depending on diplomatic discussions, it can, your visa validity period can be decreased or increased. And so it's not final, it's not fatal. These are things that can be worked on. With regards to social media vetting, it's likely here to stay. So some of the things may not necessarily have expiration dates, but there could be updated policy guidance that could impact it moving forward. But for now, these are the rules that are in place.
All right. Do you have any last piece of advice to Ghanaians that might be preparing to apply?
There's so much advice that I have based on the work I do, but obviously this is just an educational session. It's not meant to be legal advice. You need legal advice. Seek out a U.S. qualified immigration attorney to work with you based on the specifics of your case. But one of the things I'll say that I encountered recently is that we have been working on a lot of cases where, or well, some cases I would say, where visa agents have applied for a number of students to get into school in the United States.
Okay.
And once the people came to school, they realized that there was an issue with their application for sometimes fabricated transcripts or some other issue. And what the US government is doing is that they go back to see which visa agent did the preparation for all the applicants, and then they flag them and then they go after them. So if you are a student trying to come to school, I would advise you to make sure that you handle your own application by yourself.
Okay.
You need guidance. At the very bare minimum, speak with a qualified U.S. immigration attorney to make sure you're on the right track if you believe, oh, you can't pay to hire the services. But using visa agents, if the visa agent is flagged for some type of fraud, it impacts all the cases he
On the
touched.
application,
And
yes.
so even though you may be innocent or yours wasn't touched, it becomes a very difficult situation to be in. So that's just one of the pieces of advice, general education or advice I would give.
All right. I want to say thanks to you for sharing your time with us. Ekuya O Abuaji, AK Poku. Thanks so much for being with us today on the Rush Hour.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you very much. Now, she is a seasoned Ghanaian American attorney licensed both in Ghana and